still walk out on the plant floor every day to reground myself. You used to get out of your office and get down the flight line or get down to the maintenance bay and talk to Marines or talk to airmen, working on your airplane. I mean, you no matter what's going on in the work life, when you get down there and talk to some of those young motivators, changes your perspective on everything, kind of brings you back to ground zero. I use that same technique here at Capewell when I again do a daily walk around the plant, sometimes more than once. Just talk to folks, see how they're doing, ask them how it's going.
Well, hey everyone, and thanks for listening. Today I'm speaking with Thomas Weidley, President and CEO of Capewell, a global leader in aerial delivery and survivability life support solution. Thomas, or Wheels, thanks for chatting with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. It's certainly a privilege to be here with you.
Yeah, we were chuckling before as we started. My call sign's Otto, yours was Wheels in your service, so I may defer to that every once in a while, but really appreciate your time. And I think the audience is going to love your story. Obviously, an incredible journey, through the Marines and then now in your current role as CEO at Capewell. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing.
I grew up in suburban Philadelphia, so I'm a diehard Eagles fan, believe in everything else. So I think there's only one professional sports team, but anyway, grew up there. Was a big athlete in school, wrestled, football, threw javelin in the track team for something fun to do in the spring. And then after that, I was going to join the Marine Corps straight out of high school, and my parents counseled me against that. So I went to school, got a engineering degree, and wrestled in college in a place called Ohio Northern University, a low Division III school in Ohio. And as soon as I got to ONU, I joined the Marine Corps as an officer candidate. So I finished up my degree and went a couple of summers to officer candidate school. And then when I graduated, I had an air contract, commissioned, and entered the Marine Corps through Navy flight school.
So why the Marines?
I had some friends that were in the Marines growing up, and it was always the toughest, the hardest service to get into. I really liked competition, fighting, those kinds of things really motivated me. And being a part of an organization that was the best fighting force on the globe was something that I aspired to at that time. And so I went for it.
Awesome. And your timing was very interesting for our future conflicts that would follow you around for the rest of your career.
Yeah, it really did.
Can you just walk me a little bit through career and, some of the cool opportunities you've had in the Marine Corps?
Went in as an aviator, became a Cobra pilot. So I flew attack helicopters, which was awesome. Not quite as motivating as Strike Eagle, but pretty darn close if you're only at 50 feet. Did multiple, combat tours in that. I think my first one was Desert Shield, Desert Storm. As a young lieutenant, went up through the ranks. Like you, Otto, I went to Marine Corps' version of fighter weapons school at MOTS 1 down in Yuma. So I did a tour there as an instructor. Became, squadron commander, was on the Marine Expeditionary Unit as an air officer for a while. Took my squadron overseas to Iraq in the 2005-6 timeframe. Did a tour and a couple of tours in Headquarters Marine Corps, was a group commander, was a wing commander, so kind of led at every aviation level up through the ranks, and ended up being a general officer for a little over 8 years in the end. So it's about 34 and a half years total service. Enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you for your service. That is fantastic. So if you look at any time, at least for my peers and the folks I've enjoyed serving with in the Marine Corps and kind of the fights that went on, I'm sure there were some amazing leaders that you aspired to be. Can you share, one or two, and what characteristics, traits, or leadership qualities you really were able to take with you?
Yeah, much like you in your military service, right? You serve with really, really good leaders, and you serve maybe with some that weren't so good. And even on those ones that may not have been so good, there's always lessons to be learned, right? And so that inevitably shapes who you become as a leader, right? Those experiences that you have and those leaders, as you say, you aspire to be like. I think, the warrior ethos was something that really inspired and motivated me and my leaders, right? Leaders that led by example. They didn't just, talk the talk, they actually walk the walk. Leaders who were very much engaged with their troops, right? No matter what level you are, it gets harder and harder to stay connected with your Marines in my case, and so you have to make a concerted effort to remain connected to those you lead, right? So if you don't take those extra steps to be able to engage with them, it's harder and harder to, take decisions in their best interest, right? So those types of leaders that I served with, had several of them that kind of emulated those characteristics of kind of a servant leader, right? Taking care of those underneath you, inspiring them on every day to make sure that they were ready to fight when the nation called. And, those that put warfighting as the priority, there's a lot of other distractions in the military service. And if you always center yourself on warfighting, what am I doing every day to contribute towards my warfighting, mission? How can I be better? How can I make sure that, I come home and my Marines come home every day? Those are the types of leaders that I aspire to be like.
Fantastic, and definitely resonates. So you've had, I'm sure, multiple lessons learned, in combat. Can you share a story or two of, one of those lessons that uniquely you've been able to take the lessons learned from that and transition that into corporate America?
Probably the biggest lesson from combat is how to deal with uncertainty, right? How to deal with kind of chaos and make sense out of chaos. So if you're in an environment where there's a complex situation, you're being shot at, maybe your wingman's shot, trying to figure out what to do. You got folks screaming on the ground for help and support. So how you're able to, prioritize and kind of deal with that uncertainty. Those are probably the biggest lessons that I bring forward. Now, in our, in my day job at Capewell, we're not dealing with folks getting shot at or shot up, but we do deal with environments where you have to be able to, respond rapidly in uncertain environments, right? Having to make, decisions based on limited information, trying to make the best decisions you can, taking in all those variables that you see before you. And in some cases, you don't have a lot of time to make a decision. Other cases, you have a couple weeks to make a decision. And so trying to, apply those lessons learned of how you kind of deal with uncertainty, and you're able to prioritize, to bring things down to its lowest common level, not getting lost in the chaff and flares, but actually seeing a problem for what it is, and then making a good solid decision and then moving out. I think those are some of the things that I've learned from my combat experiences, bringing them forward into Capewell, really.
Yeah, and I'm sure your demeanor during these situations also, not everything's compared to getting shot at, when your orders come in short, it's still urgent, it's important, but it's different.
Right. Yeah, it's different, 100%. Yeah.
We'll get into Capewell in a second, just a little bit more. You've made a good fantastic transition, to walk out of the Marine Corps as a general officer and then join Capewell and then move into your current role. That transition's often hard for all military, and a lot of times military officers, as they feel their skill sets, without the domain knowledge necessarily, it's tough to make that transition. What can you share about your transition, from the Marine Corps to becoming CEO of Capewell, and, things that you think enabled that?
It's a great question. I think, for me personally, it was about, again, entering an environment of uncertainty, and, how you approach that, I think really makes a difference. I think you need a huge dose of humility, right? To be able to just come into an organization where your folks are probably thinking about you a certain way. They've already made up their mind. There's predetermined mindset about what, a retired military person is, or a general officer is, those kinds of things. And so, trying to ground everybody in what that actually means, right? And, I cringe when people call me general or something like that. I don't, I'm Tom, Mr. Weidley, whatever, wheels, trying to maintain that level of respectful parity probably is the best way to put it, so we can operate, we can function together, right? I want to hear, from folks, I want to hear their ideas. There shouldn't be a stovepipe, how sometimes you get in the military when, oh, it's the group commander or the wing commander coming in. Don't say a word, be quiet, even though you might know there's a problem. He asks you, what's the problem that you're trying to address today, right? So trying to, create that environment where people feel comfortable. It's not about, rank, for me, military rank, certainly not. It's about respect and earning respect coming into an organization. It's being humble. It's doing things that, probably, other folks don't do, or might think that, it's unbecoming of them or whatever. I've fill out all my own travel claims. I do my own expense accounts. I schedule all my own meetings. I mean, all of those kinds of things, right? So it's having that kind of mindset, I think, made the transition easy for me. I just knew that I was going back to my roots as a young officer kind of thing, back to kind of basics, right? And those basic leadership skills that, you and I both learned when we entered service and we became leaders and officers, those kinds of things, carry forward into civilian career. And that's exactly what I used and leverage is still used to this day. I don't think I act any differently today than I did when I first showed up at Capewell. My folks will tell you whether that's true or not. But it's again just being that personable leader that your team can count on. I mean, I still walk out on the plant floor every day to reground myself. You used to get out of your office and get down the flight line or get down to the maintenance bay and talk to Marines or talk to airmen. Working on your airplane. I mean, you no matter what's going on in the work life, when you go down there and talk to some of those young motivators, changes your perspective on everything, kind of brings you back to ground zero. I use that same technique here at Capewell when I again do a daily walk around the plant, sometimes more than once. Just talk to folks, see how they're doing, ask them how it's going, because you can always get a sense of the organization when you walk around. You can, again, when you've done it for a long time, you can just look at people and attitudes and emotions, the way people carry themselves, the way they talk and engage, kind of how things are going. And the kind of that, that leader sense, if you will. And like I said, I leverage that all the time. Just being out and about talking to people and getting to know folks. And, you got to know who they are and what they do, what makes them tick, what's important to them, those kinds of things. And then I apply those things as a leader in the company, right? Somebody tells me something on the floor, it'd be really nice if we had this or that, right? Then that's my responsibility then. So, I take that stuff to heart and we go and try to figure out a solution for whatever the problem is that they might be having. So.
Not all the military leaders have that servant leadership heart, but you can tell through, the way you act. I'm sure it's paying huge dividends. Those soft skills are, I think one of the unique things that the good leaders coming out of the military are able to provide. At weapons school, we had Air Force weapons school, we had a saying of humble, approachable, and credible. And so if you can get that out of the way and live that way, it definitely makes a difference. Well, that's great. Well, tell us about Capewell. Let's move over on to, your current endeavors.
Yeah, Capewell's a 143-year-old defense company. Started as one. It's an aerospace and defense company. It started out originally making innovation. They were the first company to be able to mass produce horseshoe nails back in the 1880s, right? They developed a press that could mass produce horseshoe nails. So instead of using hammer and anvil, they had a press that mass produced horseshoe nails. And they had some of the first government contracts with the cavalry to produce horseshoe nails. So they had massive plants in every major U.S. city at the time, Mexico, multiple countries in Europe, et cetera, that produced, horseshoe nails because that was the mobility means, throughout the globe. Then with the advent of cars, horseshoe nails starting to go by the wayside in terms of importance and all that stuff. But Capewell's next big innovation was in the 1940s, 1939, 1940 timeframe, as we were learning as a military to be able to parachute and use parachuting operations in terms of a military context, right? We could figure out that we could parachute behind our enemy and attack them from the rear. Those kinds of things, or we can move a large force, via parachute, via air assault, airborne operations, to get behind an enemy or get an advantage on an enemy. So some of those initial drops, they dropped, several hundred, soldiers at the time and had really, really large casualty rates because they were fixed into their parachute harness. So if you have any kind of wind over the ground, if you've ever been skydiving or things like that, that if it's windy across the ground, you're going to get drugged, slammed into vehicles, buildings, trees, whatever's near the drop zone, if you can't release yourself from that parachute quickly. So Capewell developed a parachute release, which is these two releases that sit on your shoulders. And you flew with them, similar device in Eagle, but it allows you to, after you land, you can quickly get out of that parachute and then start fighting, going about executing your combat mission. So Capewell developed these parachute releases in the 1940s. And we've been really selling, a derivative of that ever since. It's almost 70 plus years of making parachute releases. I think we made almost 2 million of them. We make tens of thousands of them every year still. And we sell them to, U.S. forces primarily, all of our airborne forces, and then allies and partners as well. Tried and true, works. I mean, it's got to work, right? So there's a lot of craftsmanship that goes into making those things. But anyway, aerial delivery kind of became a thrust of Capewell in the 60s, 70s. They started getting into more aerial delivery products as well. So if you want to throw a vehicle out of an airplane, you got to put it on a platform. It's got to have certain safety devices in the aircraft for when the parachutes come out, the load, maintain stability, and those kinds of things. So all the rigging systems, all the tie-down straps, all the safety devices for the aircraft and the platform, those are areas where Capewell got involved. Everything up to but excluding the canopy itself. So that became Capewell's kind of focus. So everything really aerial delivery for the most part. And then in the 90s and early 2000s, the company started to do some, acquisition work and started bringing some different smaller companies that, really, some of it was supply chain related. Capewell produces a cargo parachute release, much like a personal parachute release. And so they bought a timer company that has the timer that's integral to those cargo parachute releases. Then in 2014, Capewell purchased a company called Aerial Machine and Tool, which had its own kind of illustrious history dating back to World War II, where they made tie-down straps for military cargo and sold, gazillions to the military. So that company started out in New York and eventually migrated itself in the late 70s down to a place called Meadows of Dan, Virginia. So that's where Capewell's second facility. We have a main facility in South Windsor, Connecticut, and then a second facility down there, Meadows of Dan, Virginia. And that's where all of our technical sewing, survivability solutions, breathing systems for aviators that fly over water, flotation is what we make there, combat harnesses, plate carriers, those types of things, all kinds of heavy technical sewing, helicopter hoisting straps, rescue hooks for the Coast Guard, all that kind of survivability type solutions are made in that facility. And our South Windsor plant is focused really on aerial delivery. So today we're really focused on those two areas, aerial delivery and then survivability type solutions.
What a cool company, supporting our warfighters, our national security objectives. How does that affect, I'd say, your employee base, the ethos of Capewell?
Yeah, it's definitely a kind of a center of gravity for the organization. And when you look at our teammates, both in Connecticut and in Virginia, they're both of the same mindset, right? They're both highly patriotic. They understand that what they do matters, right? And they're highly focused on what they're doing, because if they don't do it right, somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody potentially is not coming home to their families at the end of the day. I've got a number of friends who are still around today because their breathing bottle worked when it was supposed to, when they went crashed into the water. Yeah, that their flotation worked when it was supposed to. So those types of products, parachute releases, it has to work, or else somebody's going to get hurt. So just having that mindset that their work matters, their work saves lives, I think is, kind of the center of gravity of our people. That and a deep-seated patriotism makes it awesome to come to work every day. And a lot of our people stick around. We have an employee that's, no more than 100 feet from me. He's been here for 34 years. So yeah, just people come and they stay. They like that type of mindset. They like that type of benefit that they deliver, that they're supporting military, national defense. Like I said, they're all patriots through and through, and they want to do what they can for the military.
Yeah, and kind of circling back to that transition thing, finding a job, if you will, and that's mission-based, that's bigger than yourself, that everyone can rally around is super important.
Well, what drew me in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if you guys I had to eject out of an F-15, and so the parachute, like all those pieces, I'm not sure if Capewell made it, but yeah, kept me around. The survival gear, that stuff is, I had a chance to go talk to the ejection seat manufacturer and all their employees, and it creates a neat bond when you can see, folks can see their work directly saving lives, which is pretty amazing.
Give me goosebumps out of, sir.
That is very cool. Hopefully you got some of those guys coming back to talk to your folks at the plant.
Yeah.
Well, you guys recently unveiled, your next generation air delivery system. Can you elaborate on, kind of key features and advancements, that you're trying to bring to the future warfighting scenarios that are evolving quickly?
I think for me, especially, being, most of my tours were focused in the Pacific and kind of understanding, kind of the operating environment, kind of the potential future, warfight there. I think, being able to take that, we have a board of advisors that has a number of, senior military leaders on it and commercial space leaders. So, we use our experience to kind of project, what that future fight looks like, based on our experiences, and then try to translate that into, current warfighting trends and current warfighting requirements. And then try to make sure that Capewell's offerings underneath that kind of underpin, if you will, or provide an option for our military forces. So what does that mean? So let's just say if you look anywhere on the battlefield today, you go to Ukraine, you go to Gaza, go to the Red Sea, a number of other places, you see the rise of autonomous vehicles. Autonomy being kind of the future. When you look at the future warfight, it's going to heavily involve autonomy. And those that are able to master it and employ it are going to have, obviously, a distinct advantage over those that don't. We see that playing out today. The number of requests for autonomous vehicles, you just look at the defense news and you can see every time you turn around, someone's providing an undersea, autonomous vehicle to do, surf ops, or they're doing kinetic work or whatever the case may be, right? So as we looked at Capewell, having, decades of experience in aerial delivery, we said, okay, when this trend towards autonomy, maybe we could come up with a series of platforms that would enable our forces to deliver autonomous vehicles, right? Using a cargo aircraft. Let's just say you're looking at a submersible system that may go out and do undersea reconnaissance. You have to put that on the back of a ship. You have to drive that ship into near where you want it to operate, and then you have to throw it off the back or launch it off the back. Then it only can swim a certain range and has a certain payload and ability to operate and connect and all that stuff. Well, our thought was if you could airdrop it right to the point and place of your choosing, without having to drive a ship into potentially a contested environment to be able to deliver those things. Maybe you create local air superiority for a period of time, get it close enough to drop, protect the aircraft long enough to drop those things. And then you don't have to have somebody on the ground or in the water to disconnect it from the parachute and from the hardware that, does the delivery, right? That is an employment option, I think, that provides an asymmetric advantage to our warfighters. And so we, through some, opportunities that we're developing over in the UK and elsewhere with the Army, we said, okay, maybe we can leverage these new and emerging technologies and we can figure out how to employ autonomous systems, be they maritime, surface, subsurface, semi-submersible, be they air, drone systems, quadcopters, or ground, right, where you can drop an autonomous ground vehicle into the middle of nowhere and have it come off its platform automatically and go about doing its mission. Those would be something that would provide that asymmetric advantage to the services. So we embarked on, design efforts to provide capabilities that could do these types of things. And so we've just produced our first aerial delivery platform for the maritime environment that allows, to do boat drops. So you can drop large boats up to 12 meters or so in length. You can drop boats, you can drop submersibles, anything in any type of maritime platform. You can use this platform, if you will. It's a cradle system on an existing aerial delivery platform that with certain releases that allows it to separate, and come safely down to the water. But you don't have to have any swimmers in the water to untangle it or anything like that. We've also been working with the Army to develop some cage systems that drop drones that could do everything from logistics missions to kinetic, strike kind of missions. And then, looking at our next big design, it's about 60 to 70% complete, is on a drop system for autonomous vehicles. So let's just think you wanted to do reconnaissance in the Arctic. You could drop one of these things out with a vehicle on it, lands in the middle of the Arctic or wherever you need it to land. And then vehicle automatically disconnects and goes about operating on it, doing its reconnaissance mission by somebody who's thousands of miles away. So being able to do that, and especially using air, to do it at a time and place of your choosing, we believe is very appealing to our military forces as they bring on different types of autonomous platforms. This just provides them an additional employment option that may or may not want, but certainly an option to them.
Yeah, I love how you guys get that.
Aerial delivery, yeah.
Providing options to our commanders. Well, obviously with that, you have to be innovative to think through these things. Do you find challenges within your company to keep that innovation mindset while continuing to deliver very high quality, reliable systems on your legacy capability sets?
I would say, for us, it's probably the opposite, right? It's having to constrain the good ideas, right? The innovations that are coming through. I think, again, if you create an environment in your organization that allows those types of opportunities to flourish and those types of ideas to bubble up, I think your innovative juices of the company tend to kind of just blossom. But right now, we have too many ideas and not enough engineers to put talent against it. So we have to prioritize, which, is certainly, a challenge. But like I said, you create an environment. We've got a great series of products. Some of those products have been around for quite some time, as I discussed. But you just challenge our teams, our engineering teams and our production teams. How could we do this better? What would be a better solution here? Let's just say we wanted to drop this thing. How could we do that and still be able to, to release it, from its parachute tie downs and all that stuff once it hits the water, right? So it's really been about challenging, our team and just allowing the environment for them to think and flourish and coordinate and synchronize amongst one another, feed off of each other, bring ideas to bear.
Love that positive outlook. So that's innovation internally. You obviously are working directly with, the government, the DoD, or with primes. Often I hear in these the challenges of working, with the government, the Department of Defense. How have you seen that, especially on the innovation front and trying to bring new technologies and capabilities that they may not have thought about? How has that challenge been?
Obviously, for me, it's been a learning experience for sure. There's a couple of things probably for this one. One is you got to have the right contacts, right? You got to know where the touch points are within each of the services. Who does new concepts, right? What's the organization within the Marine Corps, Air Force, Army, et cetera, that does those kinds of things? And do we have relationships with them, right? Being able to go and present them an idea, right? There's a number of different ways. I mean, DIU has some opportunities that allows you to submit different ideas based on what they're soliciting for and whatnot, those types of things, right? So being able to understand how to interface with the services, generators of requirements and developers of warfighting techniques and concepts, that's one part of the equation, I think. And the other is just, having the investment opportunity. I mean, Capewell is a private equity-owned company, and they certainly invest in new opportunities and new ideas, new technologies, those kinds of things. So they've been very generous with funds to allow us to do some of that exploratory innovation, to take ideas and kind of bring them, through their different stages of development to determine whether, hey, this is going to be something we think there's some there, or something we probably just need to stop, modify. Well, let's put that one on the back burner. Let's move another one up to the priority list. So having resources to be able to do some of that work ourselves and not being totally wedded to getting research and development dollars from the services has been certainly hugely beneficial for us.
That does seem like the challenge of many contractors are like, well, the government wants us to do it, we'll do it. But you're the experts. You're the ones that are come up with the innovations. So that's sometimes tough to square, especially in publicly traded defense companies, it appears to me. a lot of tech has changed. We've got AI, advanced manufacturing. How have you been able to incorporate that into, your operations and your manufacturing?
Couple of things, right? We try to buy, like we have, our manufacturing facility in Connecticut has a number of, CNC machines in there, right? So again, our owners have been very generous in terms of investment buying, high technology machines that allow for things where we might have done operations like today. We do them, let's just say we have to do on a certain part, we have to do 2 25-minute cycles. We have to flip the part, put it back in, has to run another cycle in order to, provide a finished product. Recently purchased some higher technology machines that allow us not to have to flip the part. We can just nest it a certain way in this with a horizontal milling machine, and we can do the entire operation with one nest, never having to flip it, in a third of the time. So being able to invest in that, and then this machine has multiple pallets, so you can have 6 pallets loaded with components and one in the chamber, and you can push the button at the end of the day, and you come in the next day, and you can do lights out machining, and everything is completed, right? So it's the investment in higher technology capabilities that allow us to, to be more efficient in our production. Additionally, down in our Virginia facility, we have some engineers down there that are super experienced on 3D printing machines. And so you're probably asking yourself, what does 3D printing have to do with like technical sewing and all that stuff? But they have their knowledge of sewing and the master sewers, the way they think. We can create fixtures for the sewers that reduce error, require less skill, and operate at greater efficiency because of the way they can fixture different components. So if you have a piece that has, let's just say it's a piece of cloth, a piece of plastic, another piece of cloth, they can develop fixtures that kind of put those things together. And all you do is put the fixture into the sewing machine and push a button, and it will sew the right stitch at the right, separation between the stitches, et cetera. They pull that fixture off, another one's loaded, it just goes right in. And so the operator unloads the other one, pushes a button, and the next one goes, right? So they're just running fixtures into the machine and pushing a button, as opposed to actually having to hold the materials together, push everything in, spin it themselves, push it again, et cetera, right? So they developed a number of innovative fixturing devices that they prototype and then print them on the printers right in the shop. And, they take them down the sewing floor, they put them in, they validate it, and then we start using them to produce parts. Yeah.
That's a great use case. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, just awesome. And again, same thing. It's an environment where, creativity can flourish, right? Buy a couple of 3D printers. Let's see what you can do. And then you just turn them loose, and the next thing you know, half of your sewing machines are all fixtured, and we're operating at great efficiency. So it's awesome to see.
That's great. So we have, obviously, as you mentioned, a lot of conflicts brewing around the world. A lot of great power struggles are, continuing to change and shift. So there's obviously bad actors out there that are, wanting our secrets, wanting our innovation. How do you weigh that innovation mindset of continuing to push the envelope, your advanced delivery system with security and compliance and those changes that are starting to come down from the DoD?
Great question. Obviously, since we do a ton of work for DoD, we have to be, NIST, CMMC compliant, 1.0 moving to 2.0, and right. So we have to make sure that our data is protected, which requires investment in our IT systems and our phone systems and different software that does all that protective work for you. Our engineering information is all protected in a separate, standalone kind of database, protected database. Again, that's where all the engineering activity all occurs in that one database, which is not accessible by anybody other than that engineering teams. So we try to partition and put our information, especially those that relate to IP and kind of, production secrets, those kinds of things. We try to partition that off and make sure that is stored and locked down in a space that is not accessible by other folks. And then obviously general security protocols, into our facilities, citizenship verification, no photography, those kinds of things also kind of come into play. But externally, like I said, we're just, when we conduct certain engagements, we can maybe go into more detail about specific characteristics of our platforms and what, but in the open source, it's just regular, generic information that anybody could glean off of using any sites.
Do you find employees resistant to it, or are they aligned with the need and requirement? Because it's not easy.
Yeah. No, they do pretty well. Like I said, I think that the engineers have got it down pat where, they just understand that's where they work. And so it's not, access is not hugely difficult, as long as you're operating inside that kind of independent vault.
Awesome. Well, what's your plan as you are continuing to get in full stride as the CEO to continue, Capewell's legacy of innovation and excellence, if you will, in the aerospace industry?
Yeah, I think we want to do much of kind of what we've been doing over the last year or so, and that's just look at it. What's the next generation of all of our product lines, right? We make a number of different products, a lot of them been around for a while, and be able to see what's next, right? What's on the horizon. Try to continuously scan the horizon to figure out what's the next thing, what's the next innovation, how can we do what we do better? Some cases, maybe there's no way to do it better, right? If you're making a ripcord handle that's worked for 20 years, never failed, I'm not so sure we probably need to make a different ripcord handle, kind of thing. So for those areas where we can start to adapt our product offerings to better support military and first responder forces, those are things we absolutely want to do. And so that's where I see us going, right? Is to continue to bring a number of innovations to bear to hopefully support and enable our military forces.
You see yourself on a growth trajectory from a size, or you get a pretty good size where you're able to continue to roll those innovations and continue to make your employees more efficient so that you can continue to bring on more capability?
Yeah, I think we're definitely on a kind of a growth trajectory as we bring on these new platforms. There's just, there's a ton of opportunity out there, right? So now it's about us kind of capturing that opportunity, whether it's other countries that are pursuing similar technologies and partnerships with different maritime vessel manufacturers. Those things all for us portend increased growth and opportunity, right? So as those new platforms come to bear, that means new machinery, new square footage, more employees to help generate those products and be able to deliver them to those that need them.
Well, Wheels, unfortunately, I think that's about the time we have for today. But what a fantastic story of your career in the military, as well as then a model of how to transition from the military and continue to serve our country and our warfighters in your role. So thank you for your service. Thanks for doing that. And if folks want to know more about Capewell or yourself, do you have a place that they should go?
Yeah, obviously always on LinkedIn and capewell.com as, certainly everything you might want there as well.
Great. Well, thank you and appreciate your time, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks again for the opportunity today. It's been great talking to you.
All right, take care.
Best luck to you.